What up, YouTube? Knowledge and self-determination. So, I was listening to a video, and it prompted me to do this video here. This is a message to the American people, and I just want you guys to listen to this. Just hear this out, okay? The Black Lives Matter movement has been labeled anti-police, anti-government, so on and so forth, anti-USA. They have been accused of committing crimes towards white people that has been proven that the white people themselves actually perpetrated those crimes and blamed on Black Lives Matter. Now, I'm not necessarily a proponent of the organization, being as though it's a black organization, quote unquote, that's funded by white money. Not saying that white people can't have an interest in black organizations. However, in order for us to really make any changes, we need to fund our own organizations, because Black Lives Matter isn't always out there when we need people to argue for black lives. They're not always there. They pick and choose their battles because of who funds them. Colin Kaepernick took a knee, not to disrespect the flag, troops, so on and so forth, the Constitution, the United States, the government, which all, by the way, have disrespected us. Like, for instance, let's name a situation of extreme bigotry and prejudice from the troops towards American citizens. So after World War II, after Nazi Germany was defeated, and America decided to, quote unquote, capture all these different German scientists and this, that, and the third, and military people and doctors and so on and so forth, and bring them into the country and then hold the whack-ass Nuremberg trials. But all the POWs that came over into America were acquitted, exonerated, and became actual citizens, ended up working for the government, so on and so forth, right? While they were leaving Nazi Germany, riding back to their base of operations or whatever, rendezvous point to leave the country, to come back to America, the white U.S. soldiers wouldn't allow the black U.S. soldiers to ride in the same train car with them. Instead, the black U.S. soldiers had to sit in the back of the train in the service cars, while the white soldiers and the white German POWs, who were our enemy, sworn enemies, got to ride with the white soldiers, the white U.S. soldiers, right? Okay, so let's talk about how the American government has disrespected and mistreated black people by allowing things like Jim Crow to not be official law and put into the Constitution, but be a private, personal law that white people upheld in this country. The American government did nothing to stop that. The mistreatment of black people, the prison industrial complex, which you people created solely for our people. Let's look at the 13th Amendment and how the 13th Amendment states that slavery is illegal unless it's for commission of a crime. Now, we know that people all over, all walks of life commits crime, but instead, black people are the only ones that are most likely to be arrested for crime and serve time for crimes, especially those they did not commit, because as the statistics state, black people are the most falsely imprisoned and also simultaneously the most exonerated demographic when it comes to the prison industrial complex. Let's not forget COINTELPRO, which was launched by the FBI under the presidency of Richard Nixon, who launched the war on drugs to combat quote-unquote hippies who were protesting against the Vietnam War, which was another false flag operation, which helped the CIA distribute heroin all across the world, and also to demonize black people by saying that black people were the face of heroin and that white people were the face of marijuana, when the opposite was more than likely to be true, being as though there was no drug problem in the black African community until the 80s, when the American government once again, through Ronald Reagan via Oliver North, purchased drugs from Nicaragua in exchange for firearms and money and all other sorts of things. Another government that was in America's pocket, by the way, or that America was in their pocket, basically bribing them and controlling them from, this side of the border or whatever. And let's not also forget about the police and how this peaceful protest against police violence, which really wasn't about the police itself. It was about the violence towards black people. But people are saying now that excuse me, that that Colin Kaepernick's protest has been made. It's been turned into something else. That it's disrespecting the police, the flag, the troops, yada yada yada. But we've already covered the troops. We're gonna get to the flag in a minute. But let's talk about the police though, and how they have constantly mistreated us, and how we don't get treated fairly or equally in the judiciary system, the judicial system, or the criminal justice system. Let's take, for instance, how police officers, take, for instance, Tamir Rice, Eric Garner, Philando Castile. Let's also take Trayvon Martin, who was murdered by someone who was not a police officer, but George Zimmerman, whose father was a judge. We don't think any of that had any part to play in him being acquitted of murdering this young boy, right? Anyway, police officers, cases get sent up to the Supreme Court. These white police officers get exonerated by the Supreme Court. Charges are never filed against them. Yet another black innocent life was snuffed out by a white cop. And the Supreme Court, which is the judiciary branch of our government, the three parts, executive, legislature, and the judiciary, the House of Representatives and the Senate make up Congress. The president is the executive branch, and then the Supreme Court makes up the judiciary branch. They are 1/3 of the government of the United States, which means that they are an equal representation of the United States, just like the executive and the legislative branches. Which means that by them exonerating these cops who killed innocent black people, this has become a fucking American issue. So yes, it is an American issue when white cops can kill black people and they are not prosecuted for these crimes, right? And then we have Jeff Sessions in office, who Loretta Scott King, Martin Luther King's former wife before he was executed, wrote a letter to Congress basically begging and pleading with them to not allow Jeff Sessions to be appointed as the Attorney General. He is a known white supremacist, locking up peaceful protesters who did the lunch counter sit-ins in the 60s and 70s to protest the mistreatment of black people. Right? Let's get to the American flag, and then I'll get to the crux of this video very shortly. Let's get to the American flag now. The American flag, which was sewn, Betsy Ross flag, which was not the first flag. It was Francis. Man, I'm about to say Collins, but I know that's not right. But this gentleman's Wikipedia, the American flag, Wikipedia, you'll find it. In fact, let me see something. I'll just go here real quick and do it real quick. Flag, Wikipedia, and then we go down here. Wait, is it? Okay, yeah. Let's go down here. Here we go. Francis Hopkins. Here we go. Francis Hopkins. The first flag. Yeah. Francis Hopkins saw the first flag of the United States, while people believe that it was Betsy Ross. But in any event, during this period in time in history, when his flag flew and was used as the official flag of the United States, we were still slaves in the 1700s, which was the 16th century. I'm sorry, which was the 18th century. I apologize. The 18th century, we were still slaves. Right? Betsy Ross flag became, quote unquote, the official flag. We were still slaves. The War of Independence, the Revolutionary War, when it was fought and won by the quote unquote 13 colonies against the British colonialists, we were still slaves. When the War 1812 came and Francis Scott Key, who was a racist and owned slaves, wrote that racist verse into the national anthem: "Neither hireling nor slave shall escape our wrath or the grave." Something to that effect. I'm sure I'm misquoting it, but it's something to that effect. Basically saying that there's no way you can run to, there's no way you can hide where Europeans won't find and slaughter you if need be. All right? And basically saying in one of the lyrics, saying basically they would use the blood of all the slaves to wash away the British enemy or whatever. Basically saying if they kill all of us, there'd be nothing to fight for, because Canada is a British colony and or was a British colony back during the time of the War of 1812. Now, America wanted to take that away from the British colony because Great Britain had abolished slavery. Canada was a safe haven for slaves. Europeans white supremacist colonialists, wanted to take Great Britain slight towards America away from them, right? They didn't want Great Britain to own Canada because they didn't want the slaves to have any safe haven anywhere. So, when we talk about how un-American someone is, remember how much of this information you didn't know until I said it. Message to the American people. You guys talk about all these things that don't matter while you fail to bear witness to the obviousness of the truth about your own kind. You're the only people that have gone across the globe, white supremacy, and murdered entire races of people, killed entire lands full of innocent women and children, eradicated them, erased them from the face of the planet. People got on Barack Obama and say he was a bad president. Now, Barack Obama didn't do much for black people during his tenure as president, but he did get a lot done, and I would say he was far superior a president and more intelligent than Donald Trump, you know. Although in America, white supremacy racist organizations grew exponentially during Obama's tenure as presidency or at the presidency. Amazing how that happened. And now they continue to grow while Trump is in office as well. A man who has children by multiple women, have been married multiple times, has rape cases against him, has discrimination cases against him stemming from the 70s. Right? This man has violated the Constitution, the Emoluments Act in the Constitution, which prohibits a president from basically making profits or being the figurehead of any companies that they own while they're in the presidency. He has yet to exchange temporary ownership of any of his companies to someone else's name so that he will not continuously be in violation of the Constitution of America. Let's also not forget to note his collusion with the Russians, which multiple members in his cabinet have already admitted to, including his son-in-law. But all that's okay, because Colin Kaepernick took a knee, which, if you actually read flag code, is not disrespecting or dishonoring the flag. If you know anything about flag code at all, it is not. Peaceful protest, which he was within his constitutional rights to do, and white Americans hate him. Trump, who is a person who I would say is misogynistic based on the misogynistic things he said towards women, walking up to them and grabbing their genitalia, and basically saying he's excused in doing that because he's rich, he's wealthy, right? Telling cops, pretty much giving them an okay to beat up innocent inner city children, black, brown, non-white kids, because you know that's what he meant, because that's pretty much what he said. Giving cops a thumbs up to do these sorts of horrendous acts. Again, this is a message to the American people. You think you know shit that you don't know. You're standing behind and rallying behind this guy who is a misogynistic asshole, a pig. But Colin Kaepernick utilizing the Constitution to its fullest extent to peacefully protest and then be barred from the NFL because he did so, because nobody wants to realize or recognize the truth behind what he's saying. You guys are just basing everything off of your inert hatred of black people. If a black person stands up and says what's wrong, white people, white supremacy, I should say, immediately stands up in opposition to that, because you guys aren't interested in the truth. You're only interested in what you want the world to think you are. And that's it. You're only interested in preserving your opinions of yourself, not the truth of the world. Remember, the man who is the president of this country has multiple children by multiple women, has been married multiple times, has rape cases, has rape charges pressed against him, discrimination charges against him. He has violated the Constitution in numerous ways since he's become the president, and yet black people standing up for their rights and standing up against police brutality and victimization are un-American. I think, and one other thing, Confederate flaggers are treasonous scum. Their country, which was the Confederate South after it seceded from the nation, lost the war. Right? They were vehemently opposed to the Union and wanted no parts of it. And to this day, they continue their disrespect towards the American government and American flag by spewing their hatred, treasonous rhetoric across the country. And these people are considered treasonous scum who are being attacked and who should be attacked, even if it's just verbally, with more vitriol than Colin Kaepernick. Because Colin Kaepernick never stated he wants to overthrow the American government and kick anybody out, but white supremacists have. So it's up to you whether you listen to this PSA or not, American people. But just know that the truth doesn't stop just because you close your fucking eyes and stick